Thank you, Nathaniel. Good morning. Good morning. And welcome to worship at the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock. I'm the Reverend Dr. Natalie Fenimore, and I'm a minister here at this congregation along with the Reverends Jay Brooks and the Reverend David Carl Olson, who are both here in the room, so they're not hiding. You may find them. If you're new to this congregation, please know that Unitarian Universalism is a religious tradition which embraces the wisdom of all faiths and values diversity. We are gathered here as a company of seekers, a community of activists, a home for those of all ages. We use science, reason, and the gifts of the Spirit to explore life's meaning and mystery. We believe that we need not think alike to love alike. Please visit our website or our welcome desk in the lobby to learn more about this congregation and about Unitarian Universalism. After the service today, join us for coffee hour here in the social hall or on Zoom, and there's also lunch in the social hall. Unfortunately, we cannot provide it on Zoom. I want you to check out our newsletter, The Quest, a lovely picture of David on the front, for details about opportunities for community connection. And I'd also like to issue these special invitations for upcoming events and programs. Soulful Sundown will be on Friday, March the 10th at 7:30 in the social hall. That's a time when we have more contemporary, but not that contemporary music. It won't scare you. We have a band and music in the Friday evenings, a time for us to be together a little bit more. We will have a program with Dan Pratt, Jazz in the afternoon, on next Sunday at 1 o'clock here in the worship room. Please note that it's listed as the 19th in the newsletter, but it's the 12th. It's next week. Before that, on Saturday at 4 p.m., we're showing a movie and having a discussion with the director of the movie, The Rebellious Life of Mrs. Rosa Parks. You may think you know Rosa Parks, but unless you come and see this movie or read the book, you don't really know the true depth of this woman. So please come for this talk and to meet the director of this wonderful movie. Also, we're having a lunch and learn about the environment here on our island and on our property next Sunday at noon during the social hall lunch. So please come for that. And again, next Sunday at noon, we're also having an inquirer session. That's our new member program, and we're going to start that for this season. So please come to one or all of those activities, pick up your lunch tray and go from here to there. But please just step in and take an opportunity to get to know us a little better. Today, our service honors Women's Day, which will be celebrated March 8th. Women's Day began as an observance of the fight against unjust labor conditions for women here in the US and around the world. The horrible Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire in 1911 being a prime example here in this country. During Women's History Day, Women's Day, we celebrate all the roles of women. We celebrate the achievements of all women in all areas. As Olympia Brown, the woman recognized as the first ordained woman in the United States, ordained to be a minister, ordained in the Universalist tradition, she has said in 1874, "The greatest thing has been the lifting up of the gates and the opening of the doors to women in America, giving liberty to women and thus opening to them a new and larger life and thus higher ideals." Still, in 2023, there is so much more to be done to bring about true equality for all. We'll now light our chalice.
We light this chalice with the words from Reverend Christine Robinson. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. I'm having, the light went out. Can you strike the match? Oh, good. Sorry about that, everybody. The light went out. I ask you, please, if you can, stand in body or spirit. And if you're going to sing, please wear your mask for our first hymn, number 1, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door. And song of affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need, this do we affirm and covenant with each other.
Every Stand by this faith by Olympia Brown. Stand by this faith. Work for it and sacrifice for it. There is nothing in all the world so important as to be loyal to this faith, which has placed before us the loftiest ideals, which has comforted us in sorrow, strengthened us for noble duty, and made the world beautiful. Do not demand immediate results, but rejoice that we are worthy to be entrusted with this great message, that you are strong enough to work for a great, true principle without counting the cost. Go on finding every new application of these truths and new enjoyments in their contemplation, always trusting in the one God which lives and loves.
This is now a time for silence, meditation, and prayer. Sit yourself in this space. Feel fully rooted here. Breathe slowly and deeply. Find stillness, rest. I offer these words to you from the Reverend Carolyn Owen Toll. See a blossom in your mind's eye. Allow it to fill the interior of your imagination. Greater perfection of form in nature cannot be imagined. With inward gaze, absorb each wondrous fluted petal. Slide down its humid surface until you drop as the dew into the velvety core. Immerse your senses in this safe chamber. Such fragile beauty gives impulse to weep. Slowly reverse the journey as you ascend the shaft toward wider light. Turn your imagination around and around to see its many facets. Stored within is the memory of all flowers. Marvel that this creation, while utterly fragile, yet undaunted, boldly buds forth, turning resolutely toward the sun. We, too, shimmer with expectation, exuding our own illumination, color, pulse, and scent. Vulnerable, still we venture our lives courageously toward hope and light, at once fragile and rooted. May you see yourself at once fragile and rooted, in need of help and capable of giving. I now invite you to stay seated as we sing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life.
Every Sunday, we take a special collection to support nonprofit groups. Nonprofit groups that serve human need. This week's offering will provide support to our near neighbors in the undersourced town of Roosevelt. Established the Roosevelt Community Garden in 2018 to provide community members and visitors of all ages, abilities and backgrounds with a quiet and enjoyable place to grow organic fruits, vegetables, and herbs. Gardeners learn about and share an appreciation for nature, for growing food, and for building relationships while helping the environment. The garden is also used as an outdoor classroom where community members, especially youth, learn about sustainable agricultural techniques, water conservation practices, and the nutritional benefits of food that they have helped to grow for their own consumption. For the past 2 years, members of UUCSR have volunteered at the garden once a month from March through October. There's information in the lobby about becoming a volunteer, if any of you wish. March is a time when plans are made for the coming season. Your donation will go towards supplies needed for the smooth running of the garden. If those of you here, you can see on how to use the QR code, and it tells you how to open the camera and all, and that's how you can make your donation. Or you can text, and I think the number is up there as well. And we do have a cash box in the lobby for those who would like to donate here. Thank you.
Good morning. Natalie offered me an opportunity to tell you that the music for today's service were all written by women. So we've lost something not having our orders of service, and sometimes it's hard to focus. And there are women that aren't very well known. And Nathaniel is playing 2 composers, female composers. And the anthem that we're doing this morning is by a living African-American woman. And it's the first time we're singing it. So, and it occurs to me to say this is a contemporary music. So we have to rethink how we talk about Soulful Sundowner, which is wonderful because this is a contemporary piece as well. So just so you have a sense, this is music of our time. And she's an emerging writer. So watch for Persephone Powell is her name, and you may start hearing her. She's often featured on the radio as well.
I am reading Amanda Gorman's poem, We Rise. Amanda Gorman is an American poet who I am sure you may know that she spoke at Joe Biden's inauguration. She read another poem at that inauguration. So here is We Rise. Today, everyone's eyes are on us as we rise. Today is the day women are paving the way, speaking our truth to power. In this hour, it is our duty to find the brave beauty in rooting for other women, so they too know we are not victims, we are victors, the greatest predictors of progress. We press for change. A new dawn drawn into the open by women whose silence is broken. We push on and act on our responsibility to bring visibility to the most vulnerable, to bring freedom to those who didn't have a choice, to bring volume to those who are using their voice. We clear a woman's way. We don't fear the day she steps into the light because we are with her every step of the fight. There's a lot at stake, but making a difference always takes great courage. So we encourage women who dare to stare fear square in its face. Women who've always shown that when one woman stands up, she is never alone. We know that when she steps up to right or wrong, she will fight to bring others along, to the network, into the conversation, working together to change communities and nations for generations. Our world made all the stronger, the longer women are able to sit at the table. It is her strength, her story, and her spirit which inspires other vital voices to speak up when they hear it. So let it be said that light will be shed when our world is led by leaders ahead of the headlines, the voices who are first on the front line. These women who stand up, knowing the wind not by where it is, but where it is blowing. Leading worlds not by how society is, but where change is going. We all leap forward when one woman tries, when she defies her rallying cries. Here lies, but does not rest the best of tested women who call us all to rise, speaking the truth in this finest hour, that to their own power, every single woman is entitled. But it's how they empower others that make women's voices so vital.
Thank you, Diane. When I was a young woman, which is now a long time ago, when I was in my early 20s, I first joined a Unitarian Universalist congregation. It was the Unitarian Universalist, at that time, Church of Rockville in Rockville, Maryland. There were no other black women in that congregation then, and there were few women in lay leadership, and there had never been a woman minister at that congregation. But looking closely, you could see that there were always women doing the vital work of this congregation, of all congregations, always women showing the way to building strong community. I felt my strongest welcome, my most consistent support and encouragement from these women when I decided to become a member of that Unitarian Universalist congregation, when I decided to become a professional UU religious educator, when I entered seminary, when I got ordained, and when I began my work as a minister, I was supported by these strong UU women. They encouraged me, they taught me, they showed me by example. And I can say, in all honesty, they did some pushing aside of some men to make a space for me. My stole today is one that Margaret Chalkley made by hand for me from her husband's old ties. After his death, she wanted me to remember that they supported my ministry. And this stole was made for me by the quilting group at the Rockville congregation when I was ordained. I had this great privilege and honor of going with them to the fabric store, which they pretty much closed down whenever they went, because they stayed all day. And this stole was made for me when I first became a minister, my first congregation, Davies Memorial Unitarian Universalist Church. And these quilts here before us were made by the women of this congregation, our caring committee quilters. They are made and given to those in this congregation who are experiencing sorrow, illness, grief, who are in pain. This is an extension of this community, a kind of congregational hug that is sent out. Each of these things, which I have before you, are just a symbol of love that comes from the hands and hearts of Unitarian Universalist women. Each stitch is a prayer. Each time they have touched it, they have offered a blessing. And when I touch these things, I feel the presence of their makers, their intention, their desire to pass on to me their care, to uplift, to be a light for me. In the synagogues, the rabbinette, the rabbi's wife, can serve as a spiritual counselor and confidential advisor. She may know as much about the congregation as the rabbi, as much about the Jewish law as the rabbi. She may also know it more intimately than the rabbi. She may gather up the women of the community and they can take on social causes, they can do ceremonial duties, they can talk about the future of that community. And there are the church ladies, the first ladies, the women's alliances who do the work of churches and temples. We ourselves are fortunate to have had women, Martha Kimiante, Mary Lardner, Ricky Burke, Suzanne Viverito, who spent all week preparing for and then helping during Hank Aaron's memorial service yesterday. Could we have experienced it without all that work that we didn't even see in the background? The flowers on our chancel are most often provided by Katie Shaw. I've seen Katie out with her clippers in the yard some Sunday mornings, getting us the biggest displays possible, bringing the beauty here for us as her gift to us, her blessing to us. The UUCSR's women's group hosted a Women's Day breakfast this morning. Lots of hauling back and forth to present and nourish and share a moment together. The women's group board members are our steadfast leaders: Diane Mansell, Sandra Frank, Palma Teresi, Patty Paris, Renee Silver, Leona Handelsman, Joe Reimer. How much they do for us. You may have known women who did these things in your growing up. Women who made the flowers beautiful at your churches or temples, the temples and churches of your youth, or those who made and cared for altar cloths, who cleaned the pews, who made the Torah coverings, those who prepared the temple offerings, those who cooked for gatherings, those who wore the white gloves. Hasn't it always been that way? Women holding up religious institutions, women holding up communities of faith, the communities of care. In the past, the role of women in religious community was often restricted by narrow reading of religious text and of history, and by a misplaced sense of protection or gallantry by men, or by toxic patriarchy and masculinity. The tasks of the religious community were considered a kind of homemaking, and that was the domain of religious women. I began my own career in religious education, Sunday school, often seen largely as religious women's work because children are there. And of course, children and caring for children is women's work. Now, it's also the most important work. It's also where we find here in our UU congregations the most diversity is in religious education. The most important and dynamic places are often in religious education. In the past, this housekeeping and child-rearing role was the only thing, the only place for women's religious leadership to be recognized. Women were denied the out-front leadership roles. They were denied the pulpit. In some religious traditions, they are still denied the pulpit. That was the case for us in Unitarian Universalism for a long time, except there's always a few well-placed outliers, right? There's actually, Pharaoh's daughter saving Moses. There's often someone like Mary teaching Jesus. There's often someone like Khadijah, Muhammad's first wife and first believer. There's Mary, who we call Mary Magdalene, the first to proclaim the gospel. Among our Unitarian Universalist historical outliers, there was the Quaker Unitarian Abigail Adams. Abigail wrote to her husband John Adams when he was at the Continental Congress in 1776 with his founding father brothers, trying to write the Declaration of Independence in that, that place, that room where it happened. She said to him, "Remember the ladies. Remember the ladies. If particular care and attention is not paid to the ladies, we, the ladies, are determined to foment a rebellion. We will not hold ourselves bound by any laws in which we have had no voice or representation." In 1776. Our own Unitarian African Methodist Episcopal woman, Frances Ellen Watkins Harper wrote in 1866 that we are all bound up together in one great bundle of humanity, and society cannot trample on the weakest of its members without receiving the curse in its own soul. You women can be tough. Julia Ward Howe, Unitarian, wrote the Battle Hymn of the Republic. We do not flinch from the battle for equality and justice. You should learn the many stories of Unitarian Universalist women. Their examples are worth following in so many ways. And we have followed them in some ways, in many ways. We, as Unitarian Universalists, have moved women to the pulpit. We've moved women into all the leadership roles in this congregation. Our congregation's current president is a woman, Jana North. And there have been a number of women in leadership positions up front over the decades here at UUCSR. UUCSR has had 2 women ministers emerita, the Reverend Dr. Christine Wetzel and the Reverend Jennifer Brower, honored for their long service to this congregation. It is this mix of service to the community which you can see in the lives of Unitarian Universalist women. Called to continue the personal connections, to be with people in memorial services, to feed people, to make phone calls and send emails and cards and letters to make sure everyone is just all right, just to know we're thinking of them. Called to create beauty in the life of this community, to put needle to thread, to make a quilt, to bring the beauty of flowers indoors for us, to take care of the wildflower gardens outside. Called also to serve on committees and boards. Each way of service is its own great importance. There is no level of service higher than the other. All is needed. We can appreciate it all. It is all the valued work of women, the valued work of all people here in this congregation. It is our hearts and hands combined. The women from history and the women here in this place now represent examples of living Unitarian Universalism. The UUCSR Women's Group sets this example. Their charge in the bylaws is to create a community of caring, committed women and men who are steadfast in their quest for equality and justice and peace, who advance women's rights and education on women's issues so as to achieve equality of the sexes, enhance spirituality, and affirm, advocate, and support the development of feminist theology. Imagine that. How radical is that? They are to provide enrichment and support, and they do that. They work with the Women's Diversity Network. They work with the Safe Center, supporting and giving a safe space for women in abusive relationships. They bake cookies and support the children of formerly incarcerated women, bringing them here to be with us every holiday season. In so many ways, they move out into the world, taking us with them. We need to be more aware of that. We need to go with them, follow their lead out into the world. We all need to do as they do. We need to grow an ever larger volunteer corps here at UUCSR, where each person can contribute and do their best service in this congregation and in our community. Each of us contributing in all the ways that we can. Our service to one another is based in love and care, compassion and respect. Although the first Unitarian woman was ordained minister in 1871, Celia Burley, and the first Universalist woman minister, Olympia Brown, was ordained in 1863. The first woman president of the Unitarian Universalist Association was only elected barely 6 years ago. Our UUA president, the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, has said this. Our theology, she says, affirms that no one is outside the circle of love, and that liberation is only possible when everyone is free. We were meant for joy, and joy feels like love, and it moves like freedom. We are made for this moment. We are the people we have been waiting for. May we be the people that we have been called to be. Our women's group helps to show us the way to being those people. We are all, of all genders, ages, stages, identities, called to serve this congregation. We are called to be greeters and ushers and lunch makers and religious education teachers and singers and musicians and quilters and caring cooks and note writers and booksellers and visiting people in the hospital and at home folks and gardeners and committee members and board members. All these things and so much more. All these things and so much more will joyfully build a stronger connection between us. We are those meant to serve and be served. We are those meant to offer a hand and receive it. Sometimes it's your turn to give, and sometimes it is your turn to receive. This is what community is for. This religious home needs our many hands and hearts working together to build the place of our hopes and dreams. We need to follow the example set by UU women throughout our history. We need to step up and get to work. Imagine how wonderful, how meaningful, how full of life everything around us can be. Know that we are going to get busy becoming our best selves. Know that. May it be so. Amen. Please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 1028, Fire of Commitment.
Into faith set free from fear, will the
closing, these words from the Reverend Kathleen McTeague. May the light around us guide our footsteps and hold us fast to the best and most righteous that we seek. May the darkness around us nurture our dreams and give us rest so that we may give ourselves to the work of our world. Let us seek to remember the wholeness of our lives, the weaving of light and shadow in this great and astonishing dance in which we move.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Thank you.